Alien joke number 189. The punchline is, those aren't irregular crystals. You're just a non-nucleator trying to fit in. So on a small, slow, gray planet orbiting at the fringes of a chaotic binary star system. No, it's not binary. Use that in the next one. It's not binary. Don't worry about that. Anyway, there lives a people that call themselves a word that cannot be pronounced in English or even heard by human ears, but the expression translates roughly to people. The people, much like their planet, are small, slow, and gray. Individuals resemble stone pebbles, which organize themselves in rough piles by their elliptical ratio. Within these groupings, they value individuals with interesting crystal growths on their exterior, though the crystal growths serve no physical purpose and can be quite cumbersome. But they are culturally important. Crystal growth is an aesthetic value, and so it's extremely subjective. Some elliptical ratio groups find beautiful what others find boring or even kind of offensive, and vice versa. The regularity and symmetry of crystal growth is given some universal appeal, though some irregular crystals are still considered quite striking. It's just that irregularity is seen as a less refined beauty. So though crystal growths can impart some cultural advantage, those without them are still perfectly well accepted members of general society. But there are some that choose to associate and group themselves by the absence of crystal growths rather than the elliptical ratio. Those people are pejoratively called anti-nucleators by mainstream society. And whenever people see a group of people with obviously differing ratios and no crystal growths, they are assumed to be radical anti-nucleators and are commonly targets of violent attacks. The attacks are sanctioned, even when the targets turn out to be non-anti-nucleators. The public assumption is that they should have had more crystal bearers in the group or had more homogeneous elliptical ratio. Either way, they were clearly asking for it. Now, violence is a fairly slow process, and it takes several planetary cycles to complete just a minor assault. A murderous rampage against a whole group takes a long time, and during these attacks, it's not uncommon for victims of the attack to begin affixing fragments of their fallen friends to themselves in an attempt to appear to have crystal growths. It's sort of a last-ditch camouflage. It's rarely successful, and it's mocked as a humorously impotent attempt by the doomed to finally fit in to society. Now, juveniles have rougher exteriors than the long-weathered adults. Sometimes their surfaces are jagged, and it's difficult to tell what are points of crystal nucleation and what's just a sharp edge. Juveniles in the crystal nucleation stage are very self-conscious and tend to compensate with cruelty. A very common joke about a young person's appearance is, those aren't irregular crystals, you're just an anti-nucleator trying to fit in. A few people in the mainstream community recognize the coldness of this phrase, but mainly because it's just mean to say that to a crystal-conscious juvenile. So it's really only reprimanded when used against children. Adults are fair game, and sometimes it's considered effective meta-humor when used to make fun of a person who is themselves acting in a juvenile manner. Of course, the actual anti-nucleators consider the joke highly offensive because it makes light of the last desperate act of the victims of vicious, unprovoked murders. But their objections just make it more funny to most people. Alien joke number 613. The punchline is, the bottom sun is too late to bargain. This is a very common humorous phrase in the Coil Wing Society on the B528 system's third interior planet. There are several levels of available humor and applications for this joke depending on the context. So, bottom sun generally refers to the red giant that only appears lower in the sky than its binary cousin star, a white dwarf. The red giant never rises more than 25 degrees over the horizon, as visible on most habitable landmasses. So the appearance of the bottom sun simply means the solar cycle is nearly complete. So it really just means pay up because it's too late to haggle. But there's also a cultural myth about an ancient bargain struck by the celestial beings that appear as their two suns. And in this tale, the red giant's tardiness led to it accepting a less advantageous deal, which is why it only rises lower in the sky. So it also implies lateness in general is not advantageous to one's business interests. Though in modern usage, this tale is often used ironically because it is now understood that the red giant is the more stable of the stars and its position and mass is actually advantageous for the entire planet's habitability, and the white dwarf star is quite unstable and poses greater danger to the planet. So it's used to refer to people's eagerness as evidence of lack of caution or understanding. But there's also a whole wordplay level of humor. Though the phrase itself is conveyed in a language of percussive scratching and slapping, the symbolic sound for bottom sun has a similarity to the peculiar mating cry of the lesser coilfin thumper, a common pest animal known to destroy property in chaotic mass orgies where they violently attempt to copulate with every available surface. And with this association, a more fluid pronunciation of bottom sun means a person who is only interested in screwing everything. In addition, there is a looser but still recognizable phonetic link between the symbolic sounds for late and the sound for horny. Some of these connections are etymological, as the lesser coilfin thumper is associated with the red giant due to its mating late in the day as the bottom sun rises, and both share ancient association with gods of fertility and mischief. So the bottom sun is too late to bargain also means something to the effect of the sex-crazed lunatic person is too horny to bargain. And since sexual gratification is a direct currency for the coil wings, it implies someone is so mindlessly sex-crazed that they cannot even bargain for or with sex, which to them would be like, it's almost like saying, you're so crazy from thirst you can't drink. So it's quite hilarious and multidimensional, and stand-up comics have written entire sets deconstructing the phrase, the bottom sun is too late to bargain. But that was all before B528 was destroyed, when the Coilwing Society was overrun by religious zealots who claimed that the red giant was the source of all evil and launched a bunch of antimatter into it. So now, the bottom sun is too late to bargain is kind of just like saying, try not to genocide yourself like the Coilwings did. But if you have a pretty dark sense of humor, there is still a time and place for it. Okay. All right, time out. I just out of the joke thing. I think I owe an apology. These were supposed to be alien jokes. I like trying to imagine what might constitute the same patterns and reactions to novelty and connections as humor to a being that's totally unlike Earth-like, but it keeps getting really dark. I think I just need to maybe try to do one specifically on an alien analogies to flatulence or something, bathroom humor stuff, like a colony of intelligent tube worms that turn themselves inside out to move around and leave behind rainbow slime trails. So they think of chromatic spectrums like we think of underwear stains, and when there's a rainbow in the sky, they think the sky is sharding itself. Yeah, that's definitely a better end to all this. Worms laughing about the sky sharding. Yeah, that's better. Okay.